What's happening, guys? Today we're going to be taking a look at the 2020 Lincoln Corsair, and this thing is a beauty. Now, it is its first year out technically. In previous generations it was known as the NKC. However, Lincoln's done a little bit of an upgrade. They've made this thing look really sharp. Not that the MKC didn't look great, but this thing is just a cut above. It looks phenomenal. I love it. They've essentially taken the look of the Navigator, they've shrunk it down and put it into the Corsair. So if you don't necessarily need that bigger vehicle, but you still want something luxurious, this thing is an awesome option. It's available in two different trim levels. We've either got the Select or the Reserve. In the Reserve option, we've got either a 2-liter or a 2.3-liter turbo. So the one that we're looking at today is the Reserve. It's the 200 pack, and it's got the 2-liter engine. It's a turboed engine, which means it also gives us 250 horsepower and 280 foot-pounds of torque. Let's have a peek and see what this vehicle is all about. There we go, nice and simple. I like that. Now, as I mentioned, two different engine choices available in the vehicle. There's either a 2-liter turbo or a 2.3-liter turbo. Right now, this thing does only need regular gas, so we can get away using the regular 87 octane. If you want to, you can get slightly better performance out of the vehicle if you choose to use an 89 or a 91 instead. In order to fill up, it's really straightforward. On the driver's side here, as you can see, we've got our cap here. We're just going to press in and lift, and then we've got a capless fuel system. So all we're going to do is take that hose, we're just going to shove it in, and we're good to go. Once you're done, click, lock it back into place, you're set to go. Now the styling in the back here is really nice. We've got a nice little lip spoiler up at the back here. Couple things to point out. This one does have the added technology package, so the Co-Pilot 360 package. It gives us 360-degree view of the vehicle once we're inside looking at the screen. We've got a couple cameras placed underneath the side view mirrors. There's one in the front of the vehicle. We've also got a camera just in the back here. That's going to be for our reverse sensing system, so our reverse camera. We've got our sensing system, so our sensors in the back here. We've also got our front sensing system. So they've done a really good job from a safety perspective on this thing. Taking a peek here at the key fob. So a couple things to point out on the fob itself. So we've got our unlock button, our lock button, remote start, our trunk access, as well as our emergency or our horn button there. If we ever do need to get access to the vehicle, we can do that by using the emergency access key and just click it back into place there. In order to be able to remote start this thing, it's really straightforward. All we're going to do is hit the lock button once and the circle button twice. And then in order to cancel the remote start, we're just going to press that circle button again one more time. And there we go. In order to be able to open up the trunk on this thing, there's a couple different ways that we can do it. You can double click here, or let's take a look and find out a couple others. Now, just off to the camera here, there is a button just right under here. So you can press that button in order to lift it up. The other option is to wave your foot. So one of the nice things about the Corsair is that it does have a foot-activated liftgate. So all we're going to do, key in pocket, if we've got our golf bags on, if we've got our hands full of things, we're just going to swipe underneath with our foot, step back, and it's going to pop it up for us. Let's have a peek inside of the back of this thing. All right, so we've got a nice amount of room in the back here. There is a privacy shade that's going to be on the vehicle as well. So if you have anything in the back, it essentially just hides it from people so that they can't see and look into the back here. Taking it off is really simple. We do have some hooks up at the top. So let's have a peek here. So these here, we can pop these off. Driver and passenger side in order to lift this out. So really simple to do that. If we take a peek down a little bit here, as you can see here, we do have a spare tire. So our spare's underneath here. The jack is just underneath that. Now you do have Lincoln roadside assistance, so I do recommend just reaching out to Lincoln roadway assistance, or if you've got CAA, AAA, whatever the case may be, reach out to them. It makes the process a bit easier there. But we do have a little bit of storage underneath this thing as well. So Lincoln's thought ahead on that one, which is really nice. All Right, taking a look at the back here, so the back seats, we do have a 60-40 split, so 60% on the driver's side, 40% on the passenger side. In order to be able to roll them down, I should say fold them down, it's really straightforward. Just off to the passenger side here, just by this backlight, as you can see, we've got two buttons here, so one for the left side and the right side. So all we're going to do in order to fold these seats down, we're just going to press and hold the side that we want down, and as you can see, it's dropped quickly there, so really, really straightforward. Let's have a look from the side and see what that looks like. So nice and flat in the back there, which is great if you need that extra size, or the extra space, I should say. Now, in order to be able to get this thing back up, all we're going to do, grab the seat, crank it back up, lift it back into place. It's really that simple. All right, now looking in the back here, so a few things to point out. With the Elements package, you get heated rear seats. If you get the 201 package or the 202 package, it will come standard. But you've got heated seats on the passenger side and the driver's side. Unfortunately, this middle seat here, you're out of luck. You won't have a warm bum in the winter time, unfortunately. One other thing to point out, we do have cup holders here. So we've got a nice handy armrest. In order to get the cup holders out, all we're gonna do is press in and wait. Very, very straightforward, and then same idea, we're just gonna lift, push, lock that back into place. Now, one thing to point out, if you do wanna use the heated back seats, we do have buttons here in order to be able to do that. And then moving ourselves down here, we've got two USB ports. So if you have some people in the back need to charge up technology, you've got the capabilities to do that back here. Next up, looking at the driver's side door here, let's take a peek and see what we've got. I want to start down here first. So we've got our unlock button, our lock button. These here are going to let us determine which side view mirror we're adjusting. Whatever one's lit up is going to be the one that we're adjusting. At the top here, we've also got two buttons. This one here is going to kill off power to the windows in the back so that a back passenger, I should say, can't roll the windows up or down. On the left side here, we've got the ability to fold our side view mirrors in. This one here is going to be our directional pad. It lets us adjust the side view mirrors. And then we've got our window up and down button here. Up at the top here, something that's a little bit unique to the Corsair. It was borrowed from the Navigator originally, and it's also in the Aviator. But what we've done now is you can now adjust the driver and passenger seats using the sticks on the door instead. So you're not going to find them anymore on the left-hand side of the driver's seat or the right-hand side of the passengers. It's up on the door here. And we do have our seat memory, so our seat memory 1, 2, and 3. And then the last one here is going to be for our power lumbar support. So let's take a peek and see how this seat actually works when we start to adjust it. So actually adjusting the seat is not as hard as you might think. It's pretty straightforward. So using these buttons here, what we're going to do, we're going to use this one here in order to be able to adjust the backrest. So this one at the top, move it forwards or backwards to adjust that backrest. This next one here is going to either lower the seat if we drop it down, or we can raise it to lift the seat back up again. We can move the seat forwards, or we can move the seat backwards, just depending on what stick we're pressing and how we're doing it. Last one here is going to be for the power lumbar support. Now, one thing to note, in order for the lumbar support to work, you do need to have the vehicle turned on. And the reason why is because when you press the lumbar support, there's going to be something that pops up in this center screen here and lets us adjust the lumbar support manually that way. Last one to point out are going to be our seat memory settings, so our 1, 2, and 3. Really, really amazing, especially if you have multiple drivers in your household. You can set up the steering wheel, your seat, and the side view mirrors to your preference. Press and hold one of those buttons there in order to lock your preferences into place. In order to be able to adjust the steering wheel, very straightforward. So if we look here, it is a power steering wheel. It's also telescopic. So we can use this. We can move it up. We can move it down. We can go away from us. We can bring it towards us. So it's really, really straightforward in order to be able to adjust that to your liking. Once you get it to the position that you'd like it to, you've got your seat set up and your side view mirrors. Press and hold 1, 2, or 3 in order to remember your seat settings. Okay, looking at some options here. Now this is going to be along the driver's side on the next to the steering wheel. So if we look here, we've got our steering wheel here just off to the left. We're going to use this button here if we want to be able to open up the lift gate, so the back of the vehicle, in order to get into the trunk. Turning on our fog lamps, we're going to use this one here. Now we've got a couple different switches here, so there's really only two that I want you to be concerned about. The very bottom one here, which is going to keep our lights off, or the middle button, or this one here. So the one with the A, the reason why those are important, so that turns the lights off. This is the auto lamp. So the auto lamp setting, it's automatically going to turn on your daytime or your nighttime lights, depending on the time of day, how bright it is outside. So I do recommend keeping it in the auto setting because the vehicle will do the work for you. Next ones here, these two buttons are going to be for our screen dimming. So it's going to dim the instrument cluster or that Sync 3 screen, just a matter of your own personal preference with how light or dark it is. Okay, so this is the screen that we're going to be met with when the vehicle's first turned on. We've got our home button here. So if we're ever on any other screen, we want to jump back home, we're just going to press this home icon here. We've got our navigation, which is going to come standard in the Lincoln and the Corsair. We've got the station that we're currently tuned to, and we've got the capability to add a phone here. Moving into our audio now. Sources, we can choose between our different active sources. So AM, FM, Sirius, Bluetooth. If our phone was connected, our phone would be showing up here, or if we had any other external MP3 players connected. From here, we can direct tune. So we can tune to whatever station that we want to here. Press enter, and then we'll tune through. In order to be able to save a preset, also very straightforward. All we're gonna do is go to the station that we want to tune to. We're just gonna press and hold, and we've now got a preset saved. So we've got a couple pages there. We can add some more pages in our settings panel there. Moving into our phone now. So phone, very straightforward. To add a phone, we're going to make sure.
Search for your vehicle on your device and select it once it is found.
Thank you, Corsair. All right. So what we're going to do here, make sure that Bluetooth is enabled on your phone, that it's turned on. And as you can see there, we've got the Lincoln Corsair that's come up.
Confirm that the pin displayed on Sync matches the pin displayed on your device.
So it does. So the pin matches. So we're just going to hit pair and yes.
For your safety, please stay alert to changing road conditions and use Sync's voice-activated features while your vehicle is in motion.
There we go. And now the last one is going to be, do you want to allow contacts and favorites for sync? Absolutely. You're going to make phone calls in the vehicle, so you'd absolutely want them synced up. We're just going to hit allow in order to do that. Now, 911 Assist is only going to work with the phone connected. So we're going to turn that one on and then auto download our contacts, which means that whenever we connect to the vehicle, it's automatically going to download any contacts that we've got that are new that it doesn't recognize. So let's hit finish there. And then as you can see, we've got my recent calls, contacts, phone settings, do not disturb. We've got a ton of options here. One thing to point out while we're here, if we jump to our app screen, one of the nice things about the Sync 3 screen here, it does have Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. Some of the apps actually work over Bluetooth without having to plug them in. The big one is going to be music apps and the Waze app. So we've got LiveX Live, which is another radio app like Spotify. So you can use those directly through the center console screen here. In order to be able to remove a cell phone, all we're going to do is jump into our settings here. We can go to phone, and as you can see, we've got a number of different options here. But all we're going to do is start off, go to view devices, and we've got my phone here. So take a look. We can either disconnect or we can completely remove it. So we're just going to hit remove. Yes. It's going to remove my phone, delete the data, and back. Now, as you can see, we can now add another phone again. So it really is that simple. Moving into our navigation preferences here, we've got a lot of options when it comes to navigation. So searching here, really straightforward. We're just going to start typing the address that we want to go to. And you're going to pause for a second in between as you type. And the reason why is because it's going to auto-complete the address that you'd like. So this is the address for the dealership here. Let's give it a second in order to do its thing. Perfect. So we can either save that location or we can start and navigate.
Obey traffic laws, be alert, and use voice commands while driving. Please proceed to the highlighted route, and then the route guidance will start.
Perfect. Here we go. In order to be able to cancel a route that you've currently got set up, we've got an X button at the top here. We're just going to press that button, and we're going to, yes, cancel the route. Let's jump up to controls here again. So controls up and into our menu settings. As you can see, we've got a ton of settings here. So let's go through the navigation settings. Screen view, we can either go full map or our exit info. Traffic list, not anything overly exciting there. So it's going to be traffic data, so you can see here. So construction and things like that. Navigation settings are going to be the big one here. So jumping into navigation settings, we've got map preferences. Big one to point out is going to be the point of interest icons. So that's going to be things like gas stations, coffee shops, things like that. If you want those to show up. Route preferences. Pretty straightforward. All we're going to do for route preferences, so we've got a couple options. So fastest, shortest, or the most eco-friendly mode. Scrolling down a little bit, the big one to point out in preferences here would be avoiding freeways, toll roads, ferries, tunnels, etc. So if you have a preference as you're driving, you don't want to go to toll roads, press the button here. That'll essentially avoid toll roads, whether you're on the 407 in Ontario, if you're driving throughout the States, whatever the case may be. That'll make sure that the road, the navigation settings that we set up, the route, I should say, will avoid whatever settings you'd like. Next one, or the last one I should say, would be our guidance prompts. Guidance prompts, we've got voice and tones, voice or tones. So that's essentially, as we're coming up to a turn, is it going to be a voice letting us know when the turn's coming up, or is it just going to be a tone? Matter of personal preference there. And back out again. Two more to point out are going to be our home or our work icons. So we can add a favorite for our home address. The benefit of doing that is that if we've got our home address saved, all we have to do is press the voice command button on the steering wheel, and that's going to automatically navigate home if we say navigate home. So that's one of the big reasons why you want to have those settings saved inside of the vehicle here. And that's going to be it for our navigation. Moving into the app screen again, because my phone is now disconnected, that LiveX Live went away, but this is where all of the apps that are enabled on your phone are going to show up as well, as long as they can be mirrored onto the console screen here. Into our general settings now, we've got a ton of options. First one is going to be sound, so we can change out the treble, mid-range, bass, those types of settings there. Change out the balance and the fade. Now, one thing to point out, the vehicle does have the upgraded Revel audio system. So looking over there, we've got a number of speakers throughout the vehicle. It is a 14 speaker system, and it sounds really, really good when it's turned on. Let's crank it for a second here. And that's not even the full way. It's not even turned up and it's like that. I love it, and I love the fact that Nirvana was playing there. It's amazing. Jumping back here, we've got our clock settings now. So clock, we can adjust as necessary here. It is going to be in our 12-hour time as a default, or we can switch it out if you prefer that military 24-hour clock instead. Scrolling down, we've got two more settings to point out. Daylight savings time is automatically going to either spring you forward an hour or make you fall back an hour, depending on the time of year, obviously. And then our time zone updates. So that's going to automatically update the time in the vehicle depending on what zone you're in. So let's say, for instance, you're in the West Coast, you're heading to the East Coast. It's automatically going to push you forward an hour or drop you back an hour, depending on where you are. Moving into our Bluetooth settings now, we can either turn Bluetooth off completely from here, or we can add a Bluetooth device. So whether that's adding a cell phone or a Bluetooth-enabled MP3 player. From here, we've got our phone.
Search for your vehicle on your device and select it once it is found.
So this is where we would go again to add a phone. We can also do it from this button here. Moving into our radio next. So the radio text, whether that shows up or not. And then we've got our preset pages here. So we can go up to 6 pages, 6 individual, I think it's 5 per. So let's go to the front here again. Give it a second to update. There we go. Preset pages is updated to 6, and back here. So we've got 6. So we've got 30 individual presets that we can have here. So if you're the type of person where you've got a bunch of different stations in your presets, you can save as many, or you can save up to 30 here. Driver assistance now. There are a lot of options here, so let's go through. The first one is going to be cruise control. Cruise control is available on the vehicle. I do recommend the adaptive or the intelligent. So the adaptive, essentially, if we have that set here, what it's going to do is it's automatically going to, it's essentially a set it and forget it cruise control. So you set it at, let's say, 110 on the highway. The vehicle in front of you slows down. It's automatically going to slow your vehicle down as well. If they get out of the way, it's going to pull you right back up to your speed again. It's a really great system to use. Once you get the hang of it, you're never going to want to use normal cruise control ever again. And then the adaptive, or the intelligent side of things, I should say, is it's going to do a speed recognition. It's going to recognize the sign, and it's going to automatically have the speed set to whatever the sign is. So it's really your choice. I do recommend keeping it on the adaptive side of things rather than letting the vehicle do the driving there. But again, it is a matter of personal preference. Jumping into our lane keeping system, we've got 2 different options there. So we've either got the ability for the lane centering, so we've got our alert or our aid. The alert is going to be a shake on the steering wheel. So it's going to shake the steering wheel, letting you know if you start to veer into a lane without signaling. The aid is going to recenter you. So if you start to veer over into a lane, the steering wheel is going to take you back over and pull you back in and recenter you in your lane. The alert and the aid are going to do both. Alert intensity is the amount of steering wheel shake that you get. So you've either got high, medium, or low. High, normal, or low, I should say. So your own personal preference there. Moving into pre-collision assist, distance indication, active braking, evasive steering. So the vehicle is equipped with pre-collision assist. So if a vehicle in front of you slams on their brakes, a pedestrian jumps in front of the vehicle, if you're going to get into a collision and you don't see it coming, the vehicle's automatically going to brake for you. If for whatever reason it can't brake, the steering wheel, or the vehicle's going to take over of the steering wheel, and it's going to crank it out of the way to make sure that it tries to avoid a collision, or at least minimize the impact of the collision. Rear camera. Oh, where'd we go here? There we go. Okay, rear camera. Let's start here. So rear camera, we've got the enhanced parking aid. So the rear view camera is going to come on when we're in reverse. The parking aid is that beeping that we get as we back up to an obstacle. Moving next here, we've got our blind spot system. Blind spot system is going to be an indicator light on the side view mirror. So it's going to be this little guy right here. So that's going to highlight orange if somebody's under the blind spot on either side of the vehicle. Moving over here, we've got our cross traffic alert. So if something's coming perpendicular from you, so either from the left or the right hand side, and you don't see it, well, whether you see it or not, the vehicle with this setting on is going to alert you and let you know that there's a potential collision. Reverse brake assist is really friendly. Like, it's an amazing setting. Where that comes into play is if you're backing up and you don't see an obstacle, even if the beeping's there, it'll slam on the brakes for you. So if you're backing up to something a little bit too quickly, you don't see an obstacle, expect that brake to come on. It freaks you out the first time you do it, but it is a great system once you get the hang of it. Driver alert is tied into the lane keeping system. So if you get too many warnings from the lane keeping system, the vehicle will tell you that you should probably be resting. Auto start stop is that ability for the engine to essentially turn off when we're stopped at a light or a stop sign for an excessive period of time. The vehicle will choose when to turn off. It's not up to you. It's the vehicle's decision. It doesn't happen all the time either. It is occasional. Auto hold is a really neat setting. With auto hold on, if you're stopped at a light, completely stopped, and you take your foot off the brake, it's going to hold the vehicle in place. And then traction control, obviously for wintertime driving, we can turn that on or off as necessary. Next up, looking into some vehicle settings here. So we've got the ability to max for a certain amount of time. Easy entry exit, we can either turn that on or off. And that's going to be easy entry exit essentially for the key fob here, which is kind of neat. The My Key, pretty straightforward. So the My Key setting essentially allows you to set a key fob to have certain settings for the vehicle. So the big one for the My Key is going to be if you want to max out the speed so people can't go faster than, let's say, 110 kilometers an hour, you can set that up for an individual key fob. Really straightforward. Refer to the owner's manual, I should say, in order to figure that one out. Serial number, remote start setup as well. So if remote start is on, we've got the system turned on right now. When you remote start the vehicle, what happens? So looking at climate control to start here. So with our climate control, it's either going to be our auto or our last settings. With auto, the vehicle is automatically going to determine what the cabin temperature should be. Whereas in our last setting, it's going to take the last setting before the vehicle is turned off. So a matter of personal preference there. Moving into our seats and wheel, when remote start is activated, is the wheel automatically going to be adjusted, and are the seats, the heated and cooled seats, going to turn on as well? So it's a matter of preference there. And then how long does the remote start turn on for? Is it going to be for 5, 10, or 15 minutes? Moving back and scrolling down now, so we've got some settings for the windows. So we can use the key fob in order to remote open or close. Let's take a peek and see how that works. To use the key fob in order to roll the windows down, what we're going to do, in order to roll them down, we're going to press this unlock button 3 times, and then we're going to hold it on the 3rd. So we're going to go 1, 2, and press and hold. As you can see, the windows are going to roll down there. And then same thing, if we want to roll them back up, we're going to take that lock button, we're going to press and hold. We're going to press it 3 times. On the 3rd one, we're going to hold. So 1, 2, and press and hold. There we go, nice and simple. And from here, we've got our wiper settings now. So courtesy wipe is going to essentially wipe the windshield once when the vehicle's turned on. I don't recommend keeping that one on, just keep it off for now. Big reason is going to be in the winter time. If there's ice all over the place, the last thing you want is for the wipers to try to go when it's covered in ice. This is not a good thing. Rain sensing wipers, it's automatically going to adjust the wipers accordingly. You can use the stick off to the right hand side of the steering wheel in order to adjust how quickly it goes. But again, I just say leave the rain sensing wipers on, let the vehicle do the work for you. And then we can turn the reverse wiper, so the wiper on our rear window, I should say, we can turn that off. Last up is going to be our power liftgate, so we can either enable or disable the switch on the back of the vehicle. And a couple more here. So we've got our lighting now. So as this loads up, so auto high beam, I do recommend keeping that one on. And the reason being is because the auto high beam essentially is going to turn the high beams on or off as necessary. So you don't have to do anything for it. It's automatically going to turn them on if it's too dark, and it's going to dim them as it senses an oncoming vehicle. Welcome lighting is going to be that Corsair lighting that we get on the outside of the vehicle on the left and the right side. Essentially a Lincoln logo, just showing that as you come up to the vehicle there. And the auto lamp delay, how long do the lights stay on after the vehicle's locked? Is it going to be 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 120 seconds, or instantly off? Our locks here. So we've got auto unlock, we've got a mislock chirp, switch inhibit, so a couple options there, a little bit more technical stuff here. So the auto unlock is done when it senses the key fob here. Switch inhibit, if the vehicle is turned on and you leave the car with the key in your pocket or on your person, switch inhibit essentially means that people then won't be able to take off and drive the vehicle away. So it is a useful thing to have on there. And then remote unlock, what happens when the vehicle is unlocked? Do all doors get unlocked, or is it just the driver's door? Matter of personal preference and safety there. And then intelligent access, same idea, is it's going to recognize that the key fob is close in order to unlock the vehicle. Our mirrors here, so our auto fold with that on, when we lock it, it's going to automatically fold the side view mirrors in for us. And then our keypad code, so we do have the ability to get into the vehicle without our key fob on us. There's going to be a 5-digit factory number that the dealership will give you when you purchase a vehicle, and then you can enter in as many more as you'd like to. So if you have another 5-digit code that you prefer, you can type that one in as well. The factory default is always going to be there, and then you can add in whatever ones you want from there. Next up, we've got the Lincoln Way app. So Lincoln Way, essentially the vehicle is equipped with an onboard modem. So you can use it as a wireless hotspot. You do need to have a data plan, I should say, through a cell phone provider. In Canada, it is through Bell Mobility, in order to turn the vehicle into a wireless hotspot. And let's scroll over a couple more settings here. We've got some general settings. We can change the language between English, Spanish, and French, obviously personal preference, Celsius or Fahrenheit. And then we can go kilometers per 100 or miles per gallon. So again, these are all personal preferences, but if you're driving down in the US, it would obviously make sense to be in that miles per gallon instead of being in liters per 100. Tire pressure, a few options there. Now we're getting a touchscreen beep. I want you to listen for a second. So we've got a beep there. If you don't want that beep, hit this button here in order to turn it off. It is a matter of personal preference. Automatic system updates, it's automatically going to update the firmware and software in the vehicle. The only thing that's not going to get updated automatically is going to be the navigation. So you have to manually update the navigation in order to do that. So that's either going to be done yourself, or when your vehicle's in for service, ask your Lincoln technician to upgrade it for you. Other one I'm going to point out is going to be the reset. So if the screen's being wonky on you, or if you need to just wipe it out because you're selling the vehicle, we're just going to go to master reset in order to reset it to our factory defaults. Wi-Fi, so Wi-Fi, you do need to have the Wi-Fi turned on in order for the automatic updates to work. Very straightforward there. 911 assist, we've just got the ability to turn that on or off as necessary, but as I mentioned, you do need to have your phone connected in order for it to work. Automatic updates, you do need to be connected to Wi-Fi in order for that to work. Jumping into our mobile apps here, so we've already been to that screen. Your phone does need to be connected in order for the mobile apps to work. Display, now we've got some options. We can completely turn the screen off, pressing that button to turn it on, or we can have a slightly different look in the calming screen there. There we go. A little bit too quick on the draw there. Let's give that a second. Jump back into settings and display here. We can change the background look and then our mode. So we can either switch between daytime, nighttime, or auto. With it at auto, the vehicle's automatically going to determine whether it should be in day or nighttime mode, just depending on how bright it is outside. But again, it's a matter of personal preference. So if you prefer that lighter screen, darker screen, it's really up to you which one you go for there. Next up, we've got our voice control settings. Voice control settings, really, really neat. So there's a couple options here. So advanced mode, I want you to listen for a second here. Tune to 97.7.
Tuning to FM 97.7.
So as you heard there, we got a little message after we said tune to whatever station. Now I want you to, we turn advanced mode on. We're going to try that again. Tune to 94.9. There we go. So it has changed stations, but with advanced mode on, we don't get as many prompts. So it's a really, really cool system to have turned on so we don't get as many prompts from the computer here. Next up, we've got phone confirmation. So when we make a phone call, would you like to call such and such person? Yes or no? And then our voice command list. When we press the voice button here, this is the command list. So we can turn that on or off. It's really a matter, again, of personal preference. Jumping into our valet mode here. So valet mode essentially locks the screen out. So if you enter a 4-digit PIN, don't use 0000, use something a bit more challenging, but it locks the screen out now. So if you have a valet driver lending the vehicle out for an hour, whatever the case may be, and you don't want people to use the screen, you can lock it out. It doesn't matter if you turn the vehicle off, you turn it back on, you still have to enter that 4-digit PIN in order for it to be unlocked. So I do recommend keeping that one on. From here, we've got a few more options. So our ambient light is going to allow us to determine what type of lighting is going to be shown in the vehicle. So as of right now, we've got it set to our purple, or if we look at blue here, and I'm just going to, let's look down into the cup holder here. So see how we've got that blue around here? I'm just going to change it now to red. We've got green. So there are some different colors there that you can choose. So it's really, really neat. So just something small, you know, it's kind of nice at the same time. It's those little details, those little things that really make the vehicle stand out. Okay, and let's jump back here. And now we've got, so again, back into our navigation settings. We've already covered off the navigation settings when we went to the nav menu here. And a few more to point out, we've got our driver and passenger seat. So that's going to be how we adjust our lumbar support. So if we look, let's just switch to the passenger side for a second here. So we've got that button there, again, same spot on the driver's side, but what that's going to do is that's going to allow us to adjust our lumbar. So we're just going to press and hold in order to be able to adjust the lumbar to your liking there. Once you've got that, just exit out of the screen or give it a minute, it'll automatically go away. Personal profiles you could have set up so that they're tied to the key fob. Very, very straightforward in order to do that. So you can set it up there. Again, pretty straightforward. And that's going to be the Sync 3 screen in a nutshell. So as you can see, it's beautiful, it's gorgeous, it's a huge screen, and there are a ton of options. Now, a couple things to point out as we move down here. So we've got a few buttons. The first one here is going to be parking. So we can either navigate to parking that's close by, or we can use the Park Assist. Park Assist, we can do either parallel parking, perpendicular parking, or a parallel park out. So it's really, really neat to be able to do that. If, let's say, you're using the perpendicular parking, I should say, so if we're backing into a space, we can use that left or right stick in order to let the vehicle determine which side we want to find a spot on. Press the X button here, or that park button in order to get out of that screen. Okay, using the Park Assist feature on this thing is really, really simple. All we're going to do, there's a P button at the very top here. We're just going to press that, and then we've got a few options here. We're going to go Active Park Assist, and we've got a few options. We can either do parallel parking, perpendicular parking, or parallel park out. Right now we're looking for a spot, so we're going to be doing perpendicular parking here. By default, it's going to look off to our passenger side, so off to the right side there. If you want it to look on the left-hand side instead, you're just going to use your turn signal. You're going to turn signal to the left, and it's going to default look to the left instead of the right-hand side. In order to use the Park Assist, all we're going to do is literally that. So we're just going to drive forward, and we're going to follow the instructions on the screen. So let's start driving forward here. Make sure that you're in drive. So we're going to drive forward here. And we're going to follow the instructions on the screen. So we're going to release the steering wheel, so make sure your hands are off the wheel. You're going to move into neutral. And then all you're going to do is hold the park button. So you're going to press and hold the button here. And the vehicle, my foot's off the brake. It's literally doing everything for me right now. I'm not gonna lie, my foot's riding the brake a little bit right now, and it probably will for you the first few times that you do it. But at the same time, it's a smart vehicle. It will make sure that it does this properly. And as you can see, it's got a little bit of a countdown counter as it goes as well. So it's kind of telling you what's happening as you go and how much time until the next phase of the park happens. Here we go. And look at that. Nice and simple, guys. The vehicle essentially just parked itself. It has thrown me into park here as well. Next up, this button here is going to turn on our driver assistance. So the auto start stop, we can turn that one off here. Pressing the button there will get rid of it. And the last one is going to be our 360 camera. So single button press is going to give us this beautiful HD view of the majority of the vehicle. And we've got that 360 view, which is really, really beautiful. This here is going to be our parking sensor. So that reverse beeping that we get as we're backing up, we can turn that off from here. Pressing our menu button, we've got that full 360 mode. We can go for a front view, or we can go for a front 180 view. So that one's really useful if you're coming out of an underground parking spot or pulling out of a spot. You want to make sure that there's no pedestrians on either side. Just press the button one more time in order to get rid of it. Now moving down a bit here, as you can see, we've now got, rather than having a gear shift down here, we've got our buttons in order to be able to select what gear we're in. Moving down here, we can turn our audio on or off by pressing this button. This is going to turn the screen off into a calming screen instead. Press it again in order to turn the screen completely off, or one more time in order to turn the screen back on. From here, we can choose our audio sources, so whether that's Sirius XM, AM, FM, etc. This button is going to turn on our four-way blinkers. We've got the ability to switch between stations, or if our phone's connected, it allows us to switch between songs. This is going to be another way to tune, so we can use this in order to manually tune to a different station if we want to. But the vehicle does have the capability to switch using your voice, so I just recommend using that. It's really straightforward. Moving down now, a few things to point out. We are dual zone climate control, so the driver and the passenger side can be a different setting. Again, it's just a matter of personal preference there. So if you have a driver or a passenger that like to be a little bit warmer, a little bit colder, you've got that flexibility in the Corsair. We've got our heated steering wheel button here, so we're just going to press that button to turn the heated steering wheel on. Moving up here, we've got our max windshield defroster. We've got our rear windshield defroster, I should say. We can turn our air conditioning on. We can go max air conditioning. We can turn on the vehicle for auto. It's automatically going to adjust the temperature in the cabin based off of what it thinks is right. From here, we can adjust our fan speed, or pressing the center button here allows us to go into some additional climate controls. So by pressing that button here, we can figure out whether we want it blowing to our feet, to our face, or to the windshield. And then press that button again, or give it a second, and it will go away. Other ones to point out, if we press that button again, it is a hot button there, so it will automatically open up the air distribution, or we can do air circulation. With air circulation, it's automatically going to pull air from outside the vehicle if it's off. With it on, it's going to circulate air throughout the cabin instead. So really a matter of preference there. And now we've got heated and cooled front seats. So heated seats, one button press will turn it on full way. Same thing with the cooled seat, one button press to go on full way there. Now this does come in the Elements package, whether you're looking at the Select or the Reserve. We're in the 200 pack with the Reserve, which is why we've got those cooled seats as well. Moving down a little bit here, now as you can see, we've got a ton of space here, so we've got some space to store our cell phones or anything else that we might want to. Underneath, as you can see, you might just be able to make it out, but we have a 12-volt adapter there, so a traditional cigarette lighter adapter, as well as a few USB ports, so traditional USB-B, as well as a C port there as well. Moving down a tiny little bit more, a few other things to point out. So first off, let's go with the cup holders here. So as you can see, it is glowing, so we do have the ability to change the lighting here. We've got our parking brake here, so we're going to press it down in order to turn it on. And then we're going to hit the brake and press down in order to turn it off. So up for on, press the brake, drop it down to turn it off. Last one is going to be our driving mode. So we've got a series of different modes in the vehicle here. So we've got our regular, so just our normal mode. We've got our slippery ice conditions, deep snow conditions. So for things like mud, sand, etc. And then moving back again, we've got our conserve or our excite modes. So there are 5 different drive modes in the vehicle. Play around a little bit because I guarantee you're going to find one that you end up absolutely loving. Okay, looking at the steering wheel here now, we've got a ton of options and it is absolutely gorgeous. I love the embossed logo here, nice chromed out, it looks fantastic. Heated steering wheel across the board there if you do have that Elements package. So again, in the 200, the 201, the 202, the Select or the Reserve, you can get the Elements package there. Starting off on this side here, as you can see, we've got a couple things to point out. So this here, these on both sides are actually rockers. So rather than trying to press here, these aren't buttons here. You have to rock whichever way you'd like. So this going left or right is going to let you change stations or songs. Moving up or down is going to adjust the volume. This button here is going to turn on the cruise control. And if we pop up here, we know that cruise control is on when these have highlighted, but also if we look here, we know that cruise control is on when this shows up as well. Couple things to point out down here now. We've got the ability to, so we can resume, we can set, or we can increase or decrease the speed that we're at. So with the adaptive cruise control, it's a set it and forget it. So once you're up to the speed that you'd like, you're either going to adjust, so plus or minus. So these buttons, these are actually buttons underneath here. So again, you're not going to press here, it's underneath here in order to be able to set. So you're going to increase on the, or decrease on the bottom, increase the speed 1 kilometer or mile per hour in the top. If you press the brake yourself for whatever reason, you want to resume the speed that you were at, you're going to press the resume button here. Up to the side here, we've got 3 other buttons. We've got a cancel button, which will completely cancel out the cruise control. We've got our lane centering system, so we can turn that centering system on or off by pressing this one here. Now it is currently turned on there. Again, we know that when we see that steering wheel show up in the center, just above deep conditions. And the last one here is going to be the distance that you are from the vehicle in front of you. So as you can see, we have lanes that add or subtract as we go. So it's really a matter of personal comfort and how close you want to be to the person that's in front of you there. Moving off to the side here. So this is going to be our generic settings button here. So as you can see, we've got that button pressed and we've now got a number of different options. So if we press the settings button here, we can look between a couple different settings. So let's go. Once that goes away here, there we go. So we can switch between our tire pressure, just a nice calming screen, or our trip counter. In order to be able to reset the trip counter, all we're going to do, let's jump back here for a second. In order to reset the trip counter, what we're going to do is press and hold this button here. So we're just going to press and hold here, gives it a second, and it's reset the values for us there. So really straightforward. From here, we've got a couple options now. So we can either go to the left in order to be able to look at our audio settings. So we can go between AM, FM, Sirius, XM, or press to the left one more time to go back. If we go to the right, we can either make a phone call, we can hang up on a phone call by going over to the right here. Going up is going to give us our navigation, so we can navigate home to previous destinations, to your favorites or point of interest icons. And then our last one is going to be settings. So we've got some basic settings here. So the first one is going to be display, so our information screens, or we can have the miles and kilometers as well. So we're just going to go okay. And that's one of the things. Now there aren't a lot of push buttons here. It's essentially going to be this rocker that you're using in order to be able to navigate this. So it does take a little bit of getting used to, but once you get the hang of it, it's really straightforward. When you get an oil change done, you're just going to oil change here, and then you're going to press and hold the OK button in order to reset the oil life. There we go. And that's going to be this basic screen here in a nutshell. So a couple things to point out above the steering wheel. We've got this plus or minus button here. That's going to allow us to determine what gear we're in. So I say gear because it's not a manual transmission, but at the same time, it gives you a little bit more flexibility as to which one you're in here. We've got our stick on the left-hand side here, so single pull in order to get the high beams on. Push away, same thing to get the high beams on as well. So we can flip it away in order to turn it back off again. On the very end, we've got our blinkers. Make sure you use that as you're changing lanes. And then on the tip of this one here, as you can see, we can turn the lane keeping system here on or off. We know that it's on or off if we see those safety lanes there. So essentially think of it like you're bowling. So if you see those lanes up, you know that the safety system's on. So we're going to pull in if we want to use the windshields that are in front of us, the windshield wipers. We're going to push away in order to have our rear window washer fluid go. And then on the very tip here off on the stick, as you can see, we've got this here. This is going to let us turn the rear windshield wiper on or off. Now, looking up above us here, we've got a number of different things. First one to point out is going to be our sunglasses holder. And then a few things here. So we've got our cabin lights on or off from here. We can touch in order to turn the individual lights on if we want to. That's a really, really cool thing that Lincoln's done. And then our last one here is going to be whether or not the cabin lights come on when the doors are opened or not. So again, like a matter of personal preference. These here are going to open up the shade. So pretty straightforward there. The one that is further away is going to bring the shade away, so it's going to open the shade, versus here, which is towards you, which is going to close the shade. The same idea here for the actual window, for the moonroof, I should say. So we're going to press the button here in order for the moonroof to be opened up. Single button press opens it up the majority of the way. Pressing it again opens it up that just a little bit more. And then we're going to press the button again once in order to be able to fully close it up. Last one to point out above us here, we do have, if you've got a garage door opener at home, you've got the capability to be able to program the garage door code in using this here. So again, refer to the owner's manual to be able to do that. All right, now time for the fun part. Let's take this thing for a spin and see how it is. Okay, so we do have some warnings on the screen here. It's just a fuel alert. So looking here, now as I mentioned, so we are going to be using this directional pad. If we ever need to get rid of any messages that are on the screen there, we're just going to swipe to the right here, and then that's going to dismiss that message. Perfect. Let's get this cooled seat going a little bit. Let's have a little bit of fun. Wow, so see, the auto hold is enabled right now. So foot's off the brake and I'm not moving. So that's one of the nice things about the auto hold, is that it holds you in place. It's literally that. There we go. All right, fun time. Whew. So this is the 2-liter turbo engine. So 250 horsepower, 280 pounds of torque. And it's it's very, very quiet. It's one of the things I'm liking more and more about Lincoln vehicles is just how quiet the cabin is in comparison to other luxury vehicles I've driven. And it's plenty powerful as well. Like, very, very powerful. My foot's barely down and I'm up to speed, get up to speed very, very quickly. It's one of the nice things about it being a smaller vehicle is that it does, like with this power that's in this thing, it's a rocket at a 2-liter turbo. There is the available option for a 2.3-liter instead. Just take it to the next level though. With this drive, it is very, very quiet. I feel like I've got to crank some music to get it going, but okay, so lane keeping system is on, which means that I'm going to be testing that system when we get out onto the highway. We know that the auto start stop does work perfectly as well. The auto hold works nicely. Ooh. And it's got some gumption when you need it. Oh, that's great. This is gonna be fun. I've got a feeling that this is gonna be a fun drive. I'm excited. Like, I've driven one of the MKCs before, so a 2018 as well as a 2019 MKC, and don't get me wrong, it's a nice vehicle, but I absolutely love what they've done with the look of the Corsair in comparison. So it's the kind of cycle for Ford and Lincoln vehicles is that every 4 years generally there's some sort of, on the 5th year I should say, there's some sort of a facelift. So something happens to the vehicle that makes it different. Best way to look at that for the life cycle is look at it like your cell phone. Rather than it upgrading every year, there's small tweaks every year as you go, but every 4 to 5 years or so roughly, that's when they're going to get their bigger upgrades and their updates, and this is what's new and exciting. That's where things like customer feedback come into play as well. Like, you'd be surprised at how open auto companies are to getting suggestions and recommendations. And from a pure design perspective, like I love what the engineers have done here. Beautiful. Goes over bumps very, very nicely. Minimal noise there, which is great. Nah, I'm gonna wait. Oh, auto hold is... Oh, that's great. The auto hold system it plays with you a little bit. The first time you see it turn, or you feel it turn on, I should say, it clicks. So you feel it hold the vehicle, you take your foot off the brake, and you don't move. It's a really, really neat feature. Okay, and here we go. Okay, I get it. This thing's got some gumption. Oh, that's great. All right, so I've got the lane keeping system on right now. So what I'm gonna do, there we go. I'm gonna slightly veer over, see how sensitive this is. Very nice. Pulls you over instantly. Okay, so adaptive cruise is going as well. As you can see, the vehicles in front of me are slowing down, so my vehicle's slowed down. And I'm just gonna wait for this truck to get out of my way just to show you what happens here. Okay, so truck is moving forward, and here I go. And there we go. So watch the speed. Speed should drop. There we go. Perfect. Okay. Speed's gonna slowly increase now. So that's one of the beautiful things about the adaptive cruise control is that it's essentially a set it and forget it cruise, which I think is fantastic. Should go in a longer test drive to really show you how that adaptive side of things works, but it essentially has the ability for a stop and go. So it'll take your vehicle down to a complete stop, and then it'll pick you back up to speed. It's really, really useful if you're in traffic where you have a lot of stop and go traffic, because that can get annoying, especially with traditional cruise control. Because with traditional cruise control, you press the brake and then you've got to reset your speed. With the adaptive cruise control side of things, what happens is it's automatically going to slow your vehicle down, and then it'll pick you right back up to speed again, which is really, really neat. You don't have to worry about pressing any reset buttons. It just automatically does it for you. And you'd be surprised, even from a general speed perspective, if you tend to speed a little bit on the highway, driving with adaptive cruise control, it keeps you under wraps a little bit more. And it's a psychological thing, because you might think that you're really going that 120 or 130, however fast you normally go. But with adaptive cruise, it is going to keep you at a slower pace typically than what you would normally drive at. It's a really, really smart safety feature. Trying to purposely go over every bump that I possibly can right now, But that's just it with these, with like the Lincoln vehicles. The suspension on these things is absolutely beautiful. And it's such a quiet ride. I know I've said that a couple times, but it reigns true every time I say it. Lane centering system test again. And sure enough, pulled me right back over again. Oh, that's great. Oh, so neat. Some bumps. Which... like you don't really feel as you go. So nice. Cooled seat. So I've got the cooled seat on right now, and like it's nice because it is a little bit warm out right now. It's 20 degrees Celsius, so a little bit warm, a little bit on the warm side. But with those cooled seats, like lower back is nice and cool, legs are nice and cold. It's a good feeling, and it's on low right now. Let's turn it up high for a second there. Whew. Okay. Oh, that's nice. That's nice. Like typically you'd want to stay away from leather, especially in those warmer climates, because it gets really, really hot and really uncomfortable. But with these cooled seats, remote start your vehicle, whether that's from your phone or from the key fob, and all of a sudden that discomfort that you'd normally have from warm seats in the summertime, it just goes away. Not a bad thing. Actually, let's go this way. Why not? Okay, auto hold, and let's see if the start stop is going to kick in as well. Okay, so auto hold is kicked in. The auto start stop system hasn't come on yet, but again, that one does happen occasionally. It doesn't happen every single time you stop the vehicle. It's just, it really is when it decides to do it. Technology doing its thing. We can turn, oh, and then there we go. So the auto start stop has kicked in, and I'm on auto hold. So my foot's completely off the brake again, leg is up nice and high. Auto hold is on, auto start stop as well. The systems do work in tandem together, which is great. And then just touch the steering wheel, move your foot off the brake, or press the gas, I should say, and it's gonna bring that vehicle back to life. There we go. Well, guys, that was the review for the 2020 Lincoln Corsair. I hope you enjoyed it and you learned a little bit. If you have any questions, make sure that you ask them below. I'm very responsive to questions, so feel free to ask away. If you have any comments, if you have any ideas or suggestions for future videos, please let me know. Make sure that you like and subscribe because it does help the channel grow. But until I see you next time, stay safe, and I'll see you soon. Oh, this is really neat. I love the feel here, the steering wheel. Like even something as simple as the headrest. Super comfortable. Oh, that's great. You guys can go now, it's okay.